on people's behavior in chugging the waste actually, and also the children's motivations to whenever they play, they always kind of like picking up stuff and selling it to us for a small pocket change. And since we implemented the waste bank, it's visible the amount of waste that was being chucked to the ocean. Yes, we still have issues with the waste that got washed up to the shore. So that's always an issue, and we're still working on it. But at least we're trying to reduce, finger crossed, stop the waste going into the ocean from this community. And we're working towards a step further, not just stopping the waste, the recyclable waste going to the ocean, but we want to reduce or even stop the recyclable waste going to landfill, because that's not what they're supposed to be. So that's where we're working towards now with different schemes. So yeah, it's basically back to basic, and then we just provide, the foundation provided not just education, because when we started this journey, everybody come to us, Jerry, you need to educate, which is absolutely true. But when I was there, physically there and living amongst them, I was thinking to myself, okay, let's assume they all are well educated on waste, right? They know exactly what to do, they know how to separate, everything's perfect. And then what? They have no facility, they have nothing. So with one thunderstorm, everything goes back to the ocean really, all those work. So we quickly realized that's not enough. Education is the entry point, but we do need to provide and help them with facilities, infrastructure, and a system. So that's kind of like what we investing as well. So we built some facilities. The key thing now that we still haven't cracked is getting more government engagement. That's always a tricky bit, but at the moment, what we are doing is basically proving our concept of the system and include the government in the process, but getting them to do it or to pick it up, that's a different story. So that's our next homework, I think. So yeah, this is basically the system that we're doing. So from household, it's been separated, goes to our recycling center, or the household giving it to the waste hub, that we're getting picked up by the mobile waste bank, and then end up in a recycling center where we will sort out, and then some of them we sell it back to the waste collector. Some of them are this is a new initiative that we're still cooking up. We're not there yet on the upcycling bit. We really want to try to utilize the waste into marketable products, but at the industrial level and not just arts and crafts. And the rest, we still using the incinerator, a small scale incinerator. It's not a perfect solution, fully acknowledge that, fully aware of the risk as well. But what we're thinking of is that at the moment, what the government is doing, the local government is doing, is open burning, which is, as you can imagine. So we are providing a better solution, not the perfect one, but we are working towards what can we do with it. But at the moment, we're trying to reduce the number of open burning. So yeah, the goals for this year on the marine conservation part, we would like to expand to 1,000 meters square, additional 1,000 meters square. And this is just basing it on our current capacity with our manpower and everything else. But of course, with partnership, we can accelerate this. The Gardens of the Anambas Sea is where we empower local youth to be part of the team. We have a coral adoption program as well. This is to accelerate the program. And this year is very exciting. We are launching the turtle conservation with the help of a lot of our donors and also supporters for this. We're doing turtle tagging, but also Anambas, sadly, is one of the largest supplier for illegal turtle eggs for human consumption. Yeah, so we are launching an initiative to prevent, to stop that basically. So it's very exciting. For the waste management, we started in 2018 with 2 villages, and now by the end of this year, we'll be in 32 villages. And same with the mobile waste bank as well. So I guess that's it. Thank you. Do you have any questions? I think we have questions already, Chris. Lady at the back first.
Hi. I think you used the word reduce once, and there's a lot to do with, the 4 R's.
Yeah.
And considering this, in my sort of perception, is quite a rural area, how come there is so much waste being produced to begin with? So my question is, when you spent your 2 months living in the community, what waste were they producing? And is there any way to sort of reduce the initial waste that effectively you're collecting? Because if you're thinking this is an island community, then in theory a lot of the waste is the stuff that's washed up that kind of comes in, and you can see it when from the sort of third world countries, we are as sort of first world countries giving them more and more products that contain plastic, when in essence we are trying to reduce our plastic, but you should not have that much plastic to begin with.
Yeah. So yes, so should we collect more questions first, or should we just answer immediately? Oh, I'll just address it and then we'll come to you. Oh, yeah. I gave the mic to the lady. So yes, thank you very much for that. We did a waste audit, we call it. So when we kind of look at what sort of waste that is produced by the small island communities, the majority, sadly, of the waste that's being produced is the single-use plastics, the soft plastics, and then most of them are sachets. Sachets is a major pain, and we just had a conversation with Lily. It's also the matter of producer and access to alternative products, which is just not available at the moment, and yes, we can always chalk it up to the economic level as well, because there are, for example, shampoos, right? There are bottles available and there are sachets available. For a lot of these families, they live day to day. So what they can afford for them right now is a 1-day sachets. Even though towards the end of the month, you're actually spending more money, right? Cumulatively. But that's the reality of their life. So a lot of, and then of course, producers and all the big companies like Unilever's take advantage of that as well, right? By keep producing this, but the ecological impact is obviously severe. So those are the type of waste that we found the most. How to reduce it? I think it will need a bit more collaboration, and also with different partners, especially with big companies that actually can support having bulk store, for example, or refill store, like Lily suggested. It's a step further. I think it does require a different type of intervention, and it will need to bring in a little bit different people, different partners as well.
I have a question for you, Jerry. We have cooked up a couple of questions. Indonesia has 19,000 islands. Can your work be replicated elsewhere in Indonesia?
The short answer is yes. Not copy pasting it though, because even though we're the same country, but Indonesian is so diverse in terms of culture, religion, ethnicity. We're so different from each other. So I think the spirit of the program can be replicated, absolutely. In which format or how it needs to be adjusted to the local wisdom as well. But the short answer is yes, absolutely.
Any other questions, please?
I think you have.
Well, you sort of stole my question, and what I wanted to ask was whether you were having those discussions with other communities throughout Indonesia. And the reason for my question was what you mentioned, the big hurdle being generating more government engagement on this. Because my personal experience is with projects like these, when you're trying to get the government's interest, there's a few things they're looking at. One is scalability, geographical coverage, and replicability, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder if there was an like perhaps a future pillar for your organization.
So the kind of like the big dream, I guess, is to start the program started in 2018. So 5 years in development years is very short amount of time, and we're just getting to the critical mass because at the moment, for the first like 3 years, we're stuck with 2 villages, right? Just as a pilot. And then it's just the last couple of years that we have some support from corporate fundings to expand our project from 2 villages to 32 villages. And again, it just started last year that we're expanding. So I think we are starting to reach a critical mass with our program to have some sort of credibility. And what we are documenting is just not just the successes, but also the failures. What did not work, because I think that's a lot more valuable than what works, right? So we are in the process of doing that right now. Like I said, we're working we're working still with the local government, which is the district level government, but we haven't touched the national government yet. That's a completely different beast to tackle. And our angle through our waste management and marine conservation is actually the entry point, the soft entry point is actually using sustainable tourism as an entry point.
More questions? Yes, sir. Tough job for somebody to do it.
I absolutely admire hugely what you're doing. I can't tell you how much I admire it. We had the privilege of being in the Far East 2-3 years ago, and the schools were all pristine, absolutely pristine, and the rest of the country looked like a rubbish tip. My question to you is, you've got the children on side, how do you get them to continue the process going forwards? Because I think that's one of the really big issues. And these schools, you would have eaten your breakfast off the floor, off the garden. But I tell you what, you wouldn't have eaten it anywhere else.
Where is this schools? I want to go to these schools. Not the school experience I've been. But yes, I think catch them while they're young, right? Like, and you're right. It's not a guaranteed that this thing will continue on, but from what again, our foundation is a bit too young, 5 years to kind of see the trend of what these kids will be after they get our education and things. But what's interesting is that I think the more exposure they have beyond schools. So when they get out and they see the local youth working with our marine biologists, actually doing coral conservations, when they're off school, they can be participated as well. When they see their parents are still collecting waste and going to the waste bank and start selling it, because now we have we're presence in like multiple village. When they visited their aunties or their uncles in different village, again, they were exposed to the same thing. So I'm hoping that repetitive exposure towards better behavior when it comes to waste conservations and outside of school would finally stick. Here's the hoping.
Question? Jock.
Yes, thank you. I actually think that the two biggest things that are a problem in our world is marine debris and single-use plastics, and just combine the two things together. I'm sure, like a number of us here in the audience, we've been out in Bali and areas that part of the world, and we see all this plastic that is just corrupting our ocean. I see the foundation, and I just congratulate you as a little bit of a catalyst. You cannot do everything, but you're starting the motion going, you're starting the trend going, you're getting the kids into understanding what needs to be done. But I think the bigger problem, which the world has got to solve, is single-use plastics and marine debris. And it is not just it's happening where you are, it's a worldwide problem. And somehow or another we've got to resolve this. Otherwise we have the biggest catastrophe coming to us. What I would like to ask is that, in the end, you look at some of the figures, and they're not big figures, but I know you're trying. I know that you're educating people into what they should be doing. The waste itself, how are you getting rid of the waste itself? It's all very well collecting it, and you may have incineration centres, but this is a massive problem. How are you getting through that?
Well, I think that's $1 million questions for every nation in the world right now. Luckily, we're not working alone. Obviously, there's like so many organizations in the world who's trying to solve this issue, and with good partnership, right? Like for us in the Anambas Foundation, like you're right, is not how can we reduce as well. I think the First Lady was asked like on reduction as well of waste. It's not just about collecting and processing, but how can we actually reduce the waste as well. I agree. I don't think there's a silver bullet for that. There's a lot of organizations working at the policy level. There's a lot of organizations working at the local level, and organization like mine working at the grassroots level with the community. I don't have a direct answers to like how can we actually reduce this waste, but again, I think through the intervention from multiple sectors, and I do believe that working directly with the at the household level would have an impact as well. So I think, a big collaborations is needed. When we talk about marine debris, beyond plastic, the fishing industry have a major role as well, because I think ghost nets, for example, is one of the major issue that is very destructive to the coral, because when the ghost net just washed out, it just destroyed everything in its path. So yes, it is a major issue, and I think we do need this kind of like collaboration and partnerships to solve it. Unfortunately, I don't have like a direct answer to that.
Talking of partnerships, I would like to welcome Lily Barclay here from the Ocean Family Foundation. You're one of the founders. 4 families who are all members of the Thames. And you guys actually funded the Anambas Foundation.
Yes, Lily Barclay is actually one of our first donor to support our waste management with the Anambas Foundation. So we owe Lily a lot. Thank you so much.
I mean, we believe in the Ocean Family Foundation, exactly what you say. It's actually, this is just a small blueprint of all of us, what's happening in London. We are producing too much plastic. We have no sort of thought process where it's going. It's a waste problem, but it's a design problem as well. So I would just congratulate you what you're trying to do. I don't think it's the problem of these people we see here. It's the problem what we sell them. So we have to turn off the plastic tap. We have to re-evaluate how we sell these people our products. And shame on us selling them what they can't deal with. So I just think we have to rethink materials and rethink systems. And I've been very proud to kind of ignite and inspire these people to find out what they can do. And I hope we can continue supporting it and actually bringing system change to these people, which is all about refill, permanent packaging, and not having so much single use. But these people are just like us. You know, how many of you used plastic today? How many did you throw out? How much were you sold today? How much did you want to buy plastic? We have this problem. I've just come back from the INC4 in Ottawa, where I was part of the negotiation on the Global Treaty on Plastic. It's not looking good. We are all, it's being stopped. We're hoping there's going to be a local treaty on plastic at the end of this year, and it's being stopped by 15 countries. 15 countries are stopping what we are trying to do, putting a sort of stop to production and thinking about how to use this incredible material. So I just think we sit here and we look at a very small community. They're just like us, and we are they are just part of a mirror of what goes on here. So I think if everyone can rethink and design differently, we are coming a long way. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lily.
More questions? Right, sir. My glamorous assistant here.
Thank you. No, first of all, congratulations on what you're doing. And I think, I'm actually from Peru, and I think anybody that's from a third world country, developing country, I think is the politically correct term, knows that education is key, because what you said is actually really important. People don't even see it. They don't even know that they're doing something wrong because they're living it day to day. So I guess my question is, this is a great thing that you're doing, educating a new generation, because they are going to drive change. And it's incredible that you are getting the funding for it, and I think it's incredible that it's been independent funding.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the next stages of funding, I guess, to continue this project and to make it grow? Because there are a lot of resorts in Indonesia. You said it was, what you told them was, I'm your neighbor.
Yeah.
Are there other people getting involved in Indonesia, other resorts? What is the plan, I guess, at the Indonesian level?
Yeah. I mean, at the government level, of course, they always talk about the targets about reducing the waste and recycling and all that. We're way off. Like certain different areas have different targets, and but for us specifically, the next big task is actually looping in. Gonna start with local government first, because Indonesia went through like a massive decentralization a few decades ago. So now the local government actually have quite a significant power to regulate their own areas and not solely rely on the central government, unlike before. So we are focusing our efforts first on the local government, and we are starting to engage them in a more meaningful way. But the good news about what we're doing in Anambas is that even when I created some program or have ideas about the program, before I go to my boss, I actually go to the government first to show them, hey, what do you think about this? So they've been looped in since the very beginning. So they do show their support, but the support right now is, as long as they're not blocking our work, that's actually a form of huge support. But now, that's phase one, right? And then phase two, how can we have more engagement from them? We've seen some like good signs. Like, for example, when they were doing their budget, they actually called us. It's like, hey, you know, what can you help us to with this budget on our waste management? Like, we have this budget to build facility. Where should we build it? So we are included now in the process of decision making, which is huge. But now, from that point to actually take full ownership, I think that's the next big task, and we are still working towards that.
But private sector, like would other resorts, would you go to other resorts or other bigger groups to get involved?
Not in our Pacific area, but of course across. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we're the only institutions that doing this kind of work. Like Bali has a lot of work being done as well in different areas. There's a lot of like different initiatives that's being done all across Indonesia, in different level and different initiatives. So this is just like one examples, and what we would actually like is to build that network actually, and not just with Indonesians but outside Indonesia. So we, for example, we had a bit of collaboration with University of Guam, because they're also facing a bit of similar issues in Guam and the Pacific Islands. So that's kind of like the idea, is to bring some of the learnings and to share it with different areas across Indonesia as well as outside Indonesia that's facing similar problems.
There's somebody else in the room. I'll come back. I think we should say hello, thank you. He's modestly sitting at the back. Tim Hartnoll, want to stand up? You're responsible for all this.
So he's the man who's responsible for all this.
You want to say a few words? Or there's plenty of words up here. Would you like to say something?
I don't need to, he said it all.
He's very good, you chose him well. Thanks, Tim, for everything. Okay, more questions. This lady here, we'll come back.
Yes, hello. I was very interested by when you said that most of the delivery is actually the one-use plastic, and that I was like somebody mentioned refilling, and I don't know how this is happening, but there's some very interesting things done in France with that at the moment. You can see it in supermarkets. I mean, mainstream supermarkets, where now you buy a container. And you can refill your washing powder, whatever, shampoo, I think, stuff like that. And I was wondering whether there would be a way to prime that in an island, this way, if people don't have quite enough money to put the cash forward, maybe I can give them the container to start with and a little start or something. There's a way to prime the use and get people, used to doing this like that.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting about the sachet and the poverty, the way you describe it.
Yeah. So yes, when it comes to sachets, there are like home products, like your shampoos, detergent, and things like that. But the second biggest sachets used is actually on food. Instant noodle is like staple food, so that's also another issue. But on the refilling, I think Lily and I earlier have a bit of discussion that it will be very interesting to use one of the villages in Anambas as a lab, just a test case that we can control. But we would need support from let's say the Unilevers or the big companies that can actually support that and create an ecosystem for that particular village. So I think that would be an interesting initiative to take on and see how it's all worked out. But at the moment, if you have any reference point of where it has been done, that can be used as a reference for us as a case study, it'll be very interesting for us to learn and to replicate it.
Right, sir, your turn.
Thank you. You mentioned in your talk about children fighting on the beach for rubbish, which is the first stage of what you said, so that they could sell it. I understand they come from very poor communities, but have you been able to change that mindset into actually wanting to get rid of rubbish in the correct way for the benefit of the world? And if you've done that, it's far more difficult. You're working in a very small community, which is open to suggestion. How on earth do you get it into the West, where I was in Waitrose this morning, and I bought something, and the young woman, and she was very young, behind behind the counter said to me, "Sir, would you like a plastic bag?" And I said, "You're young, why are you asking me to have a plastic bag?" And she said, "My boss has told me." So the major supermarkets in the UK are all promoting plastic. How on earth do we get around that? First question was the little children on the street, did you manage to change their mindset?
Well, yeah, that's, I can't speak, I don't live here, so I don't know how to address that issue for you. But for the children, have I changed their mindset in regards to doing it for the right way, not just for the money? Is that fair to say? It's yet to be seen, to be honest. At the moment, it's all incentive based, right? It's all incentive based. But we have seen at least the behavior of the parents. And then, yes, at school, we also have some educations about plastic and separation and things like that. Have it got to their mind yet to change the behavior for long lasting? Honestly speaking, it's too early to tell, so I can't answer that. But what we have seen in a practical sense is that more and more children are more actively engaged and have a better understanding on separating waste. So that's what we've seen. More than that, deeper than that, I can't answer.
Just a comment, last night walking in Chelsea, I saw this rubbish just being dumped on the street. I took a photograph. I said to Jerry, I said, "This is how we manage our waste." I said, "Why didn't you show it?" He was too embarrassed to put it up on the screen. It's really incredible when you look at it. Anyway, more questions?
I just, I'm not sure if it's a question or whether it's a more of a challenge, because I'm a bit interested in that last comment that somehow there should be a migration away from using a monetary incentive. Because we live in a money-based economy and we live in market-based capitalism, and we should price in the cost of waste into the way that we manage our affairs. Where is a man's heart, there is also his treasure. So I just wonder, don't you think that there's actually nothing wrong with that? And that because we pay and buy for everything that we need and want, maybe we should also pay for our waste removal, and maybe Chelsea would be cleared up.
Yeah.
I think in some cities it's already being done, no? There's like fees for waste management.
A little comment about our working group, Royal Thames Maritime Sustainability Working Group. I have to first of all say thank you to my guys and girls. There are quite a few here this evening. We've developed a program and we're starting to implement it, and these talks are part of it. So thank you to them. One of the things we're looking at is the possibility of a joint project, Royal Thames with the Anambas Foundation, doing something in his patch. It might be with the coral or something else, a project we could actually work with them to get our people out there actually doing something, getting involved. And the young are particularly keen, and one of the old is quite keen as well. So that's something we're working on. It is now it's 8:05. We're quite happy. I'm quite happy to keep going. Any more questions? Right. You've had yours.
Who wants to go ahead? Another question.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jerry. May I ask if you perhaps thought, or if you heard a lot of organizations in Indonesia approach all these companies which produce all this plastic as one-use plastic? Because I know even coffee in one sachet is there, and there's like around 10 companies responsible for this. Actually, to suggested them to use material from cassava leaves or even seaweed. So it doesn't matter where this community threw the rubbish, because it's diluted with water and is still very good for the environment. I just wonder if you heard any initiative to approach Unilever, Danone, Indofood, Nestle, and others.
Yes, there are quite like strong lobby, an NGO that does specifically that, right? Like they do work with the government, like stop plastic, bye plastic bag, for example. The Clean Divers Actions is another one that's launching a very good initiative. I'm not sure if they work to change the material of the packaging. I don't think that they're working towards that. They're working towards more on, I know Divers Clean Action, they managed to lobby the big chain restaurants. I think it was like Yum. So KFC, Burger King, McDonald's, to stop giving out straw in all of the outlets, right? So they've successfully managed to do that. They also managed to convince the government, local government, like the municipal government of Jakarta, to ban single-use plastic bag. But I think it's such a seasonal thing, so they managed to do it, and then now it's going back again. So in Bali, also there's a lot of efforts being done. But changing the material or the packaging, which is a major issue, like sachets and stuff like that, there's just no incentives for corporations to do it. There's no penalty, there's no regulations, there's nothing incentivizing them or penalizing them for using it. So what's the drive? There's no incentive for them doing it.
At the back.
Tim, actually.
Tim, gosh.
Do you have a question, Tim? You should already have the answers.
I was going to think you like it. It's a test.
Yes, government does have a role to play in this. You need to create a level playing field. You need to legislate against plastic, and then putting in financial penalties. That is the only way you're going to change people's behaviour. I know from the maritime industry, I'm a major ship owner, is we had to use low sulfur fuel oil, and it was mandated across the whole industry. It was adopted by the IMO, and once you've created that level playing field and made it very clear that there are penalties if you break that, then the industry will fall in line. But without that incentive and the legislation, it won't happen.
Any more questions? Are we all done? Sounds like an auctioneer. Jock again. This is your last question.
Absolutely. Chris, it really is just a suggestion, is that it is not what you know sometimes, it's who you know to make these things happen. And I would suggest that your group actually communicates with Richard Walker, who is CEO of Iceland. Right? And Richard, in fact, is an oyster owner, but having taken over the company from his father, Malcolm, he's determined to actually do away with all this single-use plastic. And a lot of statements from Iceland is exactly how they're going to do that. Now, it's all about you start somewhere, and you hopefully the idea will spread. So I would suggest that the Royal Thames should maybe make contact with Richard Walker, and you pick them off one at a time. And Iceland, I think you would find a home or someone who thinks in the same way.
I think that's probably it. You've been a brilliant audience. We have really enjoyed the interaction. I hope you've enjoyed it too. I have a huge thank you to Jerry. I mean, he's brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much for the
This is the fourth talk of our series. It's been the best so far, and you've been the biggest and the best audience. There are no more talks now until after the summer. I know you'll be bitterly disappointed. The next talk is, I think, on the 2nd of October. A chap called Will Sterling talking about building sustainable yachts and doing amazing sustainable journeys. Anyway, thank you everybody for coming. And once again, thank you Tim for making it all possible. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. And we hope to see you in Anambas. Looking forward to play.